Yeah, have you seen Pink Red's collection? Man, that guy's got a lot of cool Pokemon.
Really?
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, like a lot of really, really high-end old cards, like graded and stuff. I
I
Okay,
had
remember
no
cool.
idea.
the first time I popped into his stream, he's like, "Oh, you like Pokemon, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let me show you something." He opens this drawer like next to him, and there's just like this pile of graded cards in a drawer. And he pulls it out, and he's like, "Look at these, look at these." I'm looking at these. I'm like, "These are a couple $1,000s now."
Damn.
Like, damn. All right.
Well
Welcome to
played.
the podcast, everybody. This is an earlier podcast than we usually do. We thought we'd do a little EU cast. First of all, congratulations everybody on making it to Europe Cup. Well done, well done. Thank you again for joining us. I know this was kind of a short notice kind of thing, so I do really appreciate it. Today's podcast will be a little bit less structured than usual, like we did with the America's Cup one. I have one or two topics I want to bring up myself, but for the most part, it'll just be like an open opportunity to chat about the game, the meta, and kind of introduce yourselves. Some of the community really know you guys. Not everyone does. I know. I was talking with. Is it Livert or Livert?
It's Livert.
Livert. Okay. So I know a lot of people don't know you, but you played really well. So a lot of people want to know you now. So it'll be cool to get the chance to kind of get to know you guys better. We have players like Sei who have been on the podcast before many times as well. People know you, boss, but not. Yeah, I don't think you've been on the
Hey,
podcast yet. So it
I have
is
not.
cool to have you here. But yeah, if you guys want to just introduce yourself, we'll go the usual boss first, and then Livert next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Baus. I am this year's, I guess, the EU prelims caster along with Killer. And previously, I've been a SWC World finalist in 2019. And yeah, I was privileged to be able to kind of enjoy some really awesome matches in the EU prelims already this year. And as we see, two of the guys that have made it through with us here today, and I'm really excited to kind of get their views on everything and just discuss the huge variety, I guess, of units that we're seeing at the moment. But yeah, and also I stream, so that's me.
What's your Twitch? I mean, obviously, when we make the YouTube video, it'll be in the links
Oh
below.
yes,
But if you could just let everyone know like where they can find you, etc., whether it's Twitch,
my
YouTube, you guys do Instagram,
I don't have
etc.
a YouTube. I have a Twitch. It's Baus SW, and my Instagram is Baus.sw, I think.
All right,
Thanks.
go ahead, Larry. Welcome.
Hey guys, I'm Livert. I've been playing Summoners War for about 5.5 years now, and this year I managed to qualify for SWC, where I kind of played some of the more unusual matches, and made it through to the Euro Cup. I'm currently not active on Twitch or YouTube in any way, but I'm considering maybe trying to give streaming a shot. So if you liked what you saw in the prelims, maybe keep an eye out for
Yes.
that.
And your Twitch name is just Livert SW, right?
Yeah, right.
Perfect. So if you guys want to catch Livert, you can do that. Maybe we can coerce him into streaming a little bit more. Yeah. Say, as always, take it away, friend.
Yes. Okay, so I'm Seiishizo, been playing for a bit more than 6 years. Been last 4 years of SWC, played Legend tournaments once. I have the habit of getting kicked out in the first round when I make it to the cup, so let's change that this year.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. As you can see, guys, we have like a pretty diverse cast here. The new faces is really cool. But I just want to let you guys know, format wise, if you guys have questions in chat, you want to ask anything directly to a person, just tag them in chat. Otherwise, you can tag myself or Stoic, and we'll get your questions through. First kind of topic that I wanted to bring up, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how the EU prelims went. Did you guys feel like it was like as you predicted? Did you feel like there were a lot of like crazy upsets? How do you guys feel about that? Anyone can kind of just jump in there.
The only thing that was kind of unexpected was Pink Rod dropping into the losers bracket first round. And I think everything else kind of went as we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To be fair, I think the EU Cup was the one where myself and probably most people got their predictions most accurate compared to some other cups. I mean, partially maybe because we know the EU Cup contestants a little better, but I think actually, essentially, of all the players that were coming back from before, you had 8 new players, you had 8 players you've seen before, and 7 of the ones you'd seen before made it through. So Livert is the only new guy in the EU Cup, so congratulations to him. At the same time, I think there was a good amount of variety, I'd say, in terms of what people were bringing. obviously based around what we saw. But yeah, overall nothing. No huge surprises.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly about that. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to watch the scroll yet, but we got the chance to talk with Stoic and I got the chance to talk with Degon about like predictions and stuff. I really felt like EU was very like I looked at this and I was like, I think it's gonna be this. And there's like 2 matchups where I'm like, okay, it could be either one of these guys. I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure. These guys are all new. They're all pretty strong. It could really go any way. It really depends on how they play that day or how RNG goes that day. But I felt like Europe Cup was dominated very heavily by experience. The experienced players had a pretty good edge when it came to the matches.
Yeah, to be fair, there were 2 players that I was looking forward to seeing in the EU Cup that did not participate, who I thought might be able to cause some upsets. So it's unfortunate those 2 didn't participate, but maybe next year.
Are we allowed to know who they are, or is it like a
Yeah,
private thing?
One Piss and Raxaz. Raxaz forgot to apply,
Oh,
and the One Piss was on holiday.
There's always 1 or 2
Oh,
every year
no.
that just don't apply.
But those 2 guys are like 2 of the strongest rune
Wait,
wise.
sorry, who was the second one?
One Piss and Raxaz.
Yeah, and the other?
Those are 2 people.
Oh, who's the first one that you said?
One Piss,
Oh,
One
I
Piece.
see.
Wow.
I see.
the French guy.
Wait,
Mhm.
But also, Lancelot, he also had a good shot, but he backed out at like the last moment
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
that's true.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I
not sure
forgot
what
about
happened
that.
there. Like, I heard like one, or it was pretty much like a day before. Like, I got like this message, like, "Yo, the guy you have to play against is dropping out. You have to play against someone else." I'm like, okay. So do I have to play Ricky or do I have to play Unart? And it's like, how do you know? It's like, that's what I do. I know shit. And he's like, all right, I asked for Vernie. It's like, no, you have to play Ricky. I'm like, okay, that's Vernie. It's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it doesn't happen too often that people drop out of like an online tournament actually.
The last moment, I think,
Yeah.
I remember 2 years ago, the guy who won the Southeast Asian
True.
Cup couldn't make it to the Asia Cup because of visa issues, and then they had to
Yeah.
switch someone else. It
Yeah,
was
they
Judas.
took a
Judas
third
got
place winner or
switched in,
so.
and then he made it through to the World Finals.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
the only other example I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember with the NA Cup, there were certain players who were like, "Hey, if I don't make it on the first day, like I can't play losers bracket." We were like, okay,
Okay.
well, just win."
Did they win?
They,
Like,
they
no one
did.
dropped
They
out, so I
did.
guess.
They
They
just won.
did. He did win. I think it was Shizzy. He was saying like if he went to losers bracket, like he wouldn't have time because he was traveling for
Ooh,
work.
and
Or
he had a
something.
tough one against
Oof.
Truro.
Yeah, but he did win. He did manage to win and take the first day. So
Yes.
What a guy.
it was serendipitous in its own way. But yeah, besides I guess EU Cups, there's not too much we can really talk about. It really did feel kind of like
I was looking
things
forward
were
to the
expected.
Lancelot Seiishizo Battle of the Giannas, but we did not.
Yeah, I was pretty sure we're not gonna play Gianna for 5 matches straight.
Yep, pretty much. It's just everyone just you ban Gianna, I ban
It
Gianna.
depends on if you're pre-banning her together or
No, you just pre-banner like you only pre-banner if you're second turn, because otherwise the first turn will pick her.
Pretty much. Unless you panic. You're like, oh, I didn't see if I'm first pick or not. Yo, that would
Well,
be
you
embarrassing,
know
though.
from the coin flip if you're first pick or not, so.
The nerves, though. Imagine you like forget. You're just like
True.
you're up there and you just forget. That would be tragic.
nerves is always a thing. And then
Yeah.
you see people who are like run out of time and then it auto picks. Or like bring in unruined unit. It happens all the time.
Shout out to our boy Fadas.
Oh boy.
Happy hands. Happy hands.
Well, the most annoying thing is like if you're right after the break, you are kept in like the ready lobby for longer, and the only thing you see is the box of preparing to pre-ban, but you cannot click anything. It's just a black screen, and you see like it's pretty much as if you're loading, but it's not loading. That's how it looks like. And then when you're right after the break, they have more of a talk of like getting into the match or like some recaps and blah blah. But sometimes it happens that you're in like that loading screen for like 3, 4, 5 minutes waiting, and that feels so long when you're just looking at nothing.
So let me ask you guys this, because I don't actually know this, and I think most people, I have a couple people have asked me when you guys are waiting to do your prelims, like, are you in a call with like ComTwist people, or are you literally just like sitting there yourself, just like alone in a room?
No, you have a call, and they just switch you from room to room. That's pretty much
Yeah.
the thing.
So I assume
And
that was the
everyone is
case
on
where they
mute,
could tell
pretty
you like,
much.
hey, you're up next. Hey, be ready in like X minutes, etc. That makes sense.
Yeah, mostly.
That makes sense. And I can't imagine just sitting in that room like waiting. Like you just like look away for a second. Suddenly you're like, oh, I have like 5 seconds to pre-ban. Awesome.
If for some reason they
Yeah.
don't tell you like when the match starts, you're like in that loading screen, and
Yeah.
then you just
Yeah,
have to
suddenly
look
it's
for
nice.
it. Yeah, I think they could maybe say something in Discord there.
Yeah, that could be a thing, like organizing wise, that would be more chill, because at some point you're, or just like a countdown of like 3, 2, or like starting in 30 seconds or something, or starting in 15.
Yeah.
But it's also a caster thing, I guess. Like it's also a combination with the organization and casting. Like you don't know how long the casters are talking, I guess. And then at some point when they stop talking, they're just pressing like you can go. So I'm not sure how that technically works on like the organization side.
Yeah, but I
For us
think
at
it's
least,
I don't know, like isn't there a delay between us playing and it actually showing on stream anyways?
What I do not
There
know.
5
is, yeah.
minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
No,
That
it's
much?
not that much. Never.
But we get 1 minute to talk between matches.
Okay.
I don't know how much of that is comes through to you guys, or how much
No,
of that goes through to
we
the
we
5
don't
minute
hear
delay.
anything of that.
I mean, you can
Yeah, I don't think
open like stream and kind of compare, but yeah, we're
I know
not hearing it on
I know
Discord.
for us it's 5 minutes in Europe. I'm not sure if it's different for you guys because maybe you have a different production crew being in like a different cup area location like Europe, etc. But for us it is a
Yeah,
5 minute
there's
delay from
differences.
like what I see and what I hear.
It is a different company, but I'm pretty sure it's 5 minutes.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't that long. It was more like I can follow like in the stream when the match is gonna start.
Yeah, mostly I was opening the stream as well, and I was muting it the moment I had to play.
Yeah.
Question from chat: are competitors able to swap runes during the wait for your next match?
You could, like, let's say I first play Baus, and then in the second match I play Livert. In between that, I could switch, but if you have like the best of 5, you cannot switch during the best of 5. But there has been some mistakes. I remember 2019 in Paris, Lucky Q won against me, and he had a Swift Amelia. Then he went into Rosit, and he drafted Amelia, but he removed the Swift runes, put it on something else. So he drafted an like half-ruined Amelia.
I
So
remember that.
you do have issues like that. So technically, yes, you can, but you have to be very secure when you do it.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You think people would like have it ready, like they would write it down somewhere. They'd be like, swap this, don't use blank, like just be ready for that.
Yeah, could be, but especially if you have a live tournament, it's more difficult, because if you're back at home, like sure you can have like all your like spreadsheets, everything, you can write down a lot of stuff, but if you're sitting there at the stage, you can't bring anything pretty much. Or you
That's
maybe a
true.
notebook or something if you ask. I don't know.
I miss live events.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
The
Wait, there's this thing
online is
going
cool,
in
but
New
it's not the
York,
same.
right?
Yeah. So the plan is to do Comic-Con in New York. I will be going to that. We'll have to
That's
see how that
cool.
goes because I don't know if it's gonna get canceled yet.
When is
True,
it?
America's really difficult right now, right?
Yeah, it's October 4th to 11th. So it's
Yeah.
it's like soon, but it's not quite there. But we'll
Yeah,
see.
so-
I mean, like things are changing at a pretty rapid pace right now. I think New York itself is doing fairly well, but there's always that, like, hey, you're not from America. You probably shouldn't come here.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you never know. You never know. I think one of the big draws for me is like, so if you guys know, I stream every single day. I haven't missed a day in almost 2 years.
Wow.
My 2-year stream streak is actually in the
Yeah.
middle of that trip. So I'll have my 2-year
Ooh,
stream streak while just streaming on like my phone or something.
Yeah, just vlog stream or something.
Yeah, no, I will for sure. But it's just like I really do wonder, like with the whole traveling thing, because I've been thinking about this in terms of like live events and like when that will be a thing again. And I feel like as much as I really want to do live events, like I want to see everyone again, like I am also very comfortable not doing that until things are like, safe enough.
Yeah, true.
I'm not gonna take the risk of the people that we care about just because I want to like hang out with the boys. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
That's the
We'll
right
see how
way.
that goes. Okay, I do want to bring up one question that I think a lot of people want to hear, whether it's on YouTube or Twitch. Me for sure, because I want to know what your thoughts on it, because I've been trying 10 million different things for this. What do you guys feel is like an underrated counter to Molong Lulu right now? What is your underrated? I know we talked a little bit about it in the Discord group before we started the podcast, but I kind of want to hear all of your guys' thoughts. I'm sure that all of the viewers really want to hear your thoughts on it too, because right now people are like, Molong Lulu's everywhere. I can't win. GG, well played. I literally uninstalled the game a couple weeks ago because of Lulu. I lost my mind. I built my 5th Lulu for Siege. I unruined all like Lulu and RTA and have never picked it, and I just lost my mind over some games. So what are you guys' thoughts here?
Wow, the best counter is to pick it. That's for sure.
The pain. The pain.
And
It's actually so true. The best counter is to pick it.
And I'll go with the second best counter is ban it.
See,
Yeah,
that's also the problem, but then it's
Fourth
if
an
it's not
excellent counter.
Lulu, it's Annabelle that procs 4 times, and it's just pain.
Best way to avoid that is pick it.
You know, I just
Pick
need to
and
pick
ban it.
Lulu and Annabelle. Pick one, ban the other one. That's the
Yeah.
strat. It's a strat.
No,
I think
there are a few counters to it, but they're not really underrated counters. Like, for example, just the standard wind units like Chung Pong is really good. Sierra is really good. Even Savannah can do pretty well into Molong Lulu. But the thing is, with whatever you pick, you have to expect them to pick a certain thing, because it's the issue with Lulu Molong is they can go in any draft they want. And therefore you have to kind of like, okay, let's say you pick a Diana, you have to expect the Antares. And that's what you saw like in Europe Cup a lot. Like, why were there so many Antares? Because everyone was spamming Dianas. If you keep that in mind and you pretty much pre-plan the whole draft, like, okay, you have this as counter, which they have that counter on, and then you have in your 5th or 4th or 5th pick, you have this or that, then it's a good way to counter Lulu Molongs. But it's thinking a few steps ahead.
yeah, it's like if you pick Savannah, you know Leo's coming out. If you pick
Yeah,
Diana, you know
exactly.
Antares is coming out. So in this situation, what do you feel like is the good answer when people pick like Sierra? Like, let's say you're a Molong Lulu user, enemy picks Sierra against you. What do you think is like the best kind of setup into that? I feel like a lot of the time you see Diana there.
Yeah. Well, Sierra's so all round, you don't really hard, like nothing technically really hard counters anything that's super all round. And Sierra's one of those.
Fire Robo.
True. True.
I haven't seen it being used yet, actually.
Do you think the base
I'm
stats
not
are
sure
good
if he
enough on
does
it?
enough, but I am curious if people start bringing him out.
I don't think the base stats are good enough, because it's so you have to run it on Despair because it doesn't have any actual utility, right? All it does is strip and nothing else. The skill one
The
is
skill 1 stuns,
eh.
but obviously you want to use the skill 2 if you're going to cut. So you got to put on Despair runes or hope for a violent proc.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree with Despair. I think he definitely has potential, and he definitely could be a unit that people just ban just because they don't really know what he does if you bring him out, like a ban bait, even if he doesn't actually work out that well in practice.
So speaking of Fire Robo, I'm absolutely certain I will see a Fire Robo in America's Cup.
Oh,
Like
has someone told you?
100%. No, just because like knowing what players are in America's Cup, these are the players who pick the things that just like nobody would ever expect.
You mean Fate Memory?
Yeah, we have Fate Memory. We have some interesting players here.
Well, we
But
have Pink Void. That's pretty much our Fame memory.
that's true. Honestly, it's true. You guys, so we have Fate Memory. You guys have Pinkroid. Who's crazy and wacky when it comes to drafts? And
well, Livert also
Livert.
has a draft I wouldn't approve.
All right.
You guys were first picking Annabelle. I was like, yo, what am I watching?
Incredible. My favorite.
I was
match.
expecting that to happen, so I don't know.
I don't know. Like, sometimes it's also an interesting thing for like tournament players in general. Like, if you know someone else plays something like kind of off meta, would you try to steal that or just counter it? And the people you played actually tried to steal your comp, which I think doesn't work that well.
Well, I mean, Guts tried it kind of, but yeah, Jan just like he didn't steal it. Like he tried to prepare for it, which also didn't work out.
I mean,
he tried.
It worked out for him on the first day, just not on the third day.
Yeah, that was for Guts though. Guts won on the first day, and then lost on the second.
Yeah.
Revenge match. But
Yeah,
I think
you have a unique draft there. You wanna talk about your draft a little bit? And I think a lot of people either mostly watch the highlights for EU, but like they really don't know what you do here, and you do some crazy stuff.
What do you want to know? Like on ladder, I usually just pick Vanessa, Triana, Annabelle, like every match basically, and then just follow up with different last picks to counter whatever the opponent is bringing.
I think
Last
a
last
lot of
meta
people would
was
actually be interested in that because there's a lot of players who don't have like the first turn control units. You know, people who don't necessarily have like Molong Lulu setups with Carnal or anything like that. So just another option for people. Obviously, the rune quality difference does play a significant factor as well as artifact difference, but just something interesting for people to think about.
also I don't
Well,
know if I can really advise it since like I never played it without the Achroma, basically. I started playing it once I got the Achroma. So I think Leona is replaceable, but Achroma, I don't know if you're too weak into CC if you don't have her.
You can't resist. It's not like you can slap a Fire Monkey King down. The thing just dies to everything.
Yeah, like there's nothing really like Achroma because we can also pick her into like or how I like to look at it is like control drafts can go either like very attack bar control heavy or a little bit more on the stun heavy side. And then you have counter picks like, for example, Fire Monkey is good against the stuns, or like a Josephine is good against the stuns, and then you have stuff like Antares or like Fire Ryu who's good against the attack bar control. But Chroma is really like the only one that you can kind of pick into both. So when you're like when it's still early in the draft and you can't really see what direction the opponent is going into, you can just slam the Chroma and you're fine either way. But if you don't have that pick, then you might need to like pick into a certain counter direction too early, and then if
You
it
have to
just goes the
gamble
other
into
way,
it,
you're
right?
basically screwed.
Yeah, so you have to like take that gamble where you're like, okay, I think they're gonna go damage focus. So you pick like those counters, and then if they
Yeah.
swap, you're kind of shit out of luck in that situation.
It still works like really well into bruisers, especially with the current Molong meta, I would say. The Vanessa Triana counters the Molong really well. So most of the times that I go into those matchups, it's basically either they really like outproc me, or well, I just win.
So for
Okay.
Vanessa Triana setup,
Great
or like
counter.
with the Triana specifically, do you feel like it's very like just speed tune it, really tanky, or do you feel like you want like some damage on there, high accuracy, max resist? Like, what do you feel like is the concept people should be building around?
I like high resist, tanky, and damage.
You like it
I don't
all with
care
crit
for
damage or with like
100 res, crit damage, tanky.
Everything.
damn, that is some
efficient.
expectations right there.
Go farm.
Yeah, if
That's
you
like
can't,
that's like the,
if you
I'm
that's like
can't,
the players who have 100 resist Savannahs in Siege. I'm just like, I don't know how you do this, but you make it work.
I think it's like for two reasons. It's looking a little bit like harder for you because I'm running quite a slow comp, so I can use a lot less speed than most people. So that can, for example, go into resistance. And the other thing is like if you don't have the rune quality, I think you can just go for like a crit rate slot 4.
Yeah, makes sense. Crit rate slot 4 is completely underrated. I think it's really good, and a lot of people. I guess it's better now that the crit changes exist, but I really think that crit rate slot 4 on a lot of supports has always been like fairly good, or at least like an attack slot 4, and people have just like slept on it forever.
Yeah, I mean crit damage is better because it's 80% instead of 58, but you know, I think crit rate makes it a lot easier to ruin overall on the other 5 slots. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is. I agree.
Yeah, it's
So yeah,
just like
DA
you
11
can't.
differences.
If you can't get like a certain rune quality, then like, I mean, you have to get like to what's the right word? You have to skip something, right? You can't take everything, and I think that's like the easiest way or the easiest fix that you can do. Can't pull the rune quality off.
actually, since the crit rate fix or bug, whatever you wanted to call it, the slot 4 crit rate is really good right now. It's a very solid thing to pick because, like, let's take for example a Barbara. If you miss your critter, you're not gonna boost up as much, and you're gonna lose your fight. Or if your Leica or Jaeger is not gonna crit on that one armor break you don't kill, you're gonna lose that fight. So, 100% crit rates got so much more important than what it used to be.
Yeah, I feel it running 70 crit. I missed 5 crits in a row on a 73 crit Barbara yesterday, and I was just like, okay, well,
Shortly.
I'm done using this. I'm done playing RT today. It's just not happening.
Also, Felicity lost his match against Roset also because of missed critters, and it was also like pretty decent crit rate, but not 100.
It's like it's so hard not being like you're exactly 85, you're 100, or it just feels like you're nothing when it comes to crit rate nowadays.
Or you're
They've,
85 and you miss on the wrong element.
Yeah, that's like it's rough. Like if you're gonna greet it to 85 crit, it has to be like you know exactly what element you're hitting every single time. Like it's a hard counter pick or something. But I feel it. I feel it. That's I think that's a topic I feel like has been around forever though. I think a lot of people have been trying to like put suggestions forward on like how they would change crit to make it like easier or better. I personally don't think that crit should change. I think we should just keep things the way they are. I know a lot of people have actually thought about changing the base crit rolls on runes. So instead of 4 to 6, making it 4 to 7 like crit damage, where you have the potential to get 5% more crit, 6% more crit on every build. But I think like I don't know if I actually think that that's necessarily a good idea
I
Yeah,
don't
because it
think
kind
they
of
can
just
really do that.
pushes it would be good for things like cleave, but it would also like push the damage focused meta forward again, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea.
yeah. Same as
I
like
don't know,
adding a grind of like a 1 or 2 plus on like every crit roll
I
or
was
something.
I was kind of thinking about maybe increasing like the base crit rate of every unit from like 15 to I don't know 20 or
20.
25.
Yeah, 15 to 20
Uh,
could be okay actually. I think it's 5% crit total versus like the chance to get 35 more crit.
it would kind of make it a little bit easier, and I think especially with like additional damage out there, I think the crit rate fixed was kind of a buff to additional damage units because the bruiser setups came way harder to pull off. So yeah, it would be nice to have like a little bit going into that direction again.
Yeah, so another thing along that side that like instead of increasing base crit, I also wondered if it would be worth it to increase crit awaken from 15 to 20. But I feel like you might as well just increase base crit, right?
Yeah,
But
but
then you got
also
the
It,
other issue.
increasing.
like, it does buff ragdoll though.
How about like some people have been asking for that as well? How about you remove the base crit of 15, but up it in like all of the rooms, so you can actually run like 0 crit if you want.
I
Part of
mean,
me thinks that would be a great idea because man, do I hate relating ragdoll so much. But like, I don't know if that would actually be a good thing or not.
15% less in the game, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, right? It's like you remove a level of RNG that I don't know if it's
Bad or good.
necessarily bad.
Yeah,
Because that would be a pretty significant nerf to ragdoll, right? Like
true.
supports not being able to randomly crit in a ragdoll. Like if you have like a Haegang first turn into a ragdoll team, like if you know you're 0 crit, like that is a significantly different time to draft that ragdoll than it would be in a normal situation, right?
I think red dot already isn't that dominant anymore. I mean,
True.
I don't
Definitely,
know.
Like,
it's good on ladder, but I don't think it's as good as it used to be in tournament for sure.
Definitely not.
did you
It's like
see the amount of kakis that were played in like the last group of Asia? Which one was it? Japan?
Japan. Yeah, that's the
Was
very
it
heavy
mainly
Japan
against
thing.
Dracos? I don't remember that, but they played a lot of kakis. They played kaki pretty much every match.
They like their really fast units too. Like speed units and like high efficiency units like in that situation are very, very strong in the meta over there. It's hard to say if that would be a good thing. I do think an adjustment to crit would be good. I think 5% to the base actually is a very good idea, like bringing it up to 20 instead of 15. I'm not sure how I feel about removing it and then adding it somewhere else, just because it would be such a crazy difference in shifts, right?
I think you've got to bear in mind that would have a big impact on Siege, and in terms of buffing everyone's Lucians, for example, and meaning that you couldn't build an unlutionable defense almost.
Although right now Lucians are like not in the greatest. Well, at least
Yeah, but
in our server, I would say Lucians are very, very out of touch unless you have Mirene. And even then, because Carcano is so relevant right now, Mirene still can lose to Carcano. Like Carcano can actually 1v3 that comp if you get even just a little bit unlucky. So
it
it's
does
hard to
depend on
say.
the meta, especially, like Molly is kind of everywhere. So
Yeah,
it's a bit
Molly is
less relevant, but in general, I suppose it kind of reduces the number of different defenses that you can bring. I mean, I suppose they can fix it via balance patches to units and stuff, but
Yeah.
it
It's
is a
crazy how there's
huge
like so
move to
many
make.
there's so many small things to consider when you like want to make such a drastic change to the game, right? Like adding 5 crit to the game changes so much more than we really think. It's not like, hey, suddenly these units become easier to build. It's like, okay, Lucians are stronger, single target snipers are stronger. Like there's just so many factors. Like Savannahs become stronger again because it's a little easier to run them. There's still a lot. There's a lot to it. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what it would what it would take or what it would be.
don't think there's
But
enough people complaining about it for them to
well, I think
want
everyone's
or
just
need to
focused.
make a change.
Everyone's kind of just accepted it, and they're like, "All right, guys, I don't need crit damage units anymore. Let's just run additional damage." Like everyone's just on the additional damage train. Because I mean, there's so many good additional damage units, right? Like additional damage by HP is so strong. We were talking about Molong earlier today in the group, and like I have like maybe 1.3% additional damage by HP, but like that is such a significant amount of damage
I
that
think
you
what they
get
could
from that.
do instead is nerf additional damage. That might be a
I
better
I wholeheartedly
way
agree.
to do
I
it.
think additional damage should take a
It
hit.
really massively reduces the pool of units that you can use in RTA. And almost to mainly to families as well. Oracles and pandas really stand out
Oracles,
um,
pandas,
because of
yeah,
this, cannon girls in theory, but really in practice only Bella.
mhm, pretty
Um,
much. I mean, she's the only one with the high enough
there's,
base. That's
there's
actually be
very
useful.
few units that do that many additional damage hits. Yeah, some more do it on their skill 2 or 3s, but like the skill 1 additional damage, literally like the whole family would be better than the whole family of, most other
Dragon
whole
Knights, yeah.
families.
Like you
Like the
compare
best
like
unit of
the
another
Dragon Knights
family.
were really, really good because they have like uniqueness to them, right? But then you look at like Oracles and it's like all the Oracles are good and unique and they like utilize additional damage so well.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else. So they just like they become this super family compared to the rest of the units. What are your guys' thoughts if additional damage ignored only a portion of defense instead of all of defense? Because
I
right now
think it
it's
would
just
be
fixed damage, right?
No.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of useless then. More that depends like how much like you can tune that like
I
up
think
or
if it
down.
if it ignored like 70% of defense, I think it would be reasonable because your damage output would still be around like 80% total, I think, or maybe a little bit less. I think so for defense, like 1% defense scales really well. But once you get to about 30%, if you're ignoring 70% of defense, you're probably still dealing somewhere between like 75 and 80% of your total damage, no? Or is it lower?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm
Well,
not I don't I'm not super
the big
familiar with
thing
the
with
damage
additional damage
calculations on it
is
anymore.
you don't need armor break as much anymore.
And yeah, it's good against defense buff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said, Tyler, seems like a good compromise. I mean, they'll have to tune it to see what percentage of defense would be
Mhm.
well balanced, but 70, 80, something like that.
Yeah, it's more the concept than the actual like
Yeah.
specific number. But I think that because I know a lot of people are like every multi-hit should reduce the amount of additional damage done, and like I guess that could also work. I mean, conceptually, it's the same idea, right? We're trying to reduce the amount of additional damage that you deal, but for me, the concept of like changing additional damage to nerf it is I want it to be more in line with the rest of the game. And I feel like it completely ignoring defense is one of the big factors of why, we don't see like a lot of really high defense units, for example. We don't see defense buff anymore. Like no one runs a defense buff comp because it's not good.
Yeah,
Right?
they
Unless
kind
you're
of
like running those meme comps.
switched it around from like defense bruises that we had last year with like the Tyrannus comps, and now basically defense bruises are more or less useless, and you go for the HP ones.
Yeah, you go fixed damage HP versus.
I think another thing that they should change is I think additional damage should be able to glance, because I think currently it can't.
That's true. That's true.
Mm,
Additional
yeah.
damage does not glance. You deal the damage regardless if it glances. That's actually a good concept. It's a good concept. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with additional damage? You brought something else up that I've always wanted, that I love talking about, and I want to jump into that unless you have more to talk about for additionals.
Well, I
Do you
don't
guys-
know. I personally would completely switch it up, like make it not ignore defense anymore, so defense-based units are good again. But I don't know how they would need to tweak like the numbers then in order to for it to not be completely useless.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we all have the same kind of idea there, right? Like we want it to be nerfed, but we want it to still be good enough that people use it, right? So whatever
but I
Concept
also
has to do to make it work.
like I also kind of don't like the fact that you, for example, don't need defense breaks as much anymore, because I think it's just kind of setting yourself up is just kind of what you're being supposed to do in a draft, right? So now you can
Depends if
basically
your draft
just
is like that. Mine is like not, so I'm fine.
yeah, but you can just basically like put in a bunch of let's say you're playing like a, I don't know, more Okeanos, that kind of stuff, and you're just basically speed cleaving with multi-hitters, and you don't really need any setup. All you need is like AoE multi-hits, and then either you have enough damage or not. And I don't know, I think that's a weird concept.
I think it's fine because it has its own counters in its own way. So
A concept with additional that I find interesting is the difference between each actual value, right? Like For attack and defense, it's 2 to 4%. For HP, it's 0.2 to 0.3, and for speed, it's 25 to 40. I feel like they should actually rebalance the way the additional stats work so that more of them are relevant across actual matches. Like, I rarely ever use additional damage by defense except for siege and like maybe 2 units. Like, I use it on my Fang, and I don't think I really focus it on anyone else. A lot of my other units, like,
Yeah,
they
but
have
it's,
it, but if I could choose a different stat, I'd choose a different stat, right?
isn't that more because there's not really that many defense-based units to begin with, and even less that are actually like multi-hitters?
Yeah, so I mean that's totally a factor, right? But like you basically have to ruin these units for defense to use it more effectively. Like my Charlotte has 19% additional damage by defense, and the reason is because I just have like a quad roll additional damage by defense, right? So I use it because it's what I have. I find it useful because if people pick Leo, she still does a stronger amount of additional into that. But I think like when I
So
look at my account, like almost all of my units are additional damage by speed focus, where it's like over 250%, except for like 3.
yeah,
Like
but what would
Molong.
you? I mean, how
Yeah.
would you want to fix it? Because usually you can't run high defense units because it's just like bad to run high defense into additional damage comps. You would rather
It's
go for
exactly.
high HP. So if
Yeah.
you would want additional damage by defense to be used, then you would have to increase the value that it brings you like significantly. And at that point, it will probably get unbalanced because then you start focusing on defense again in order to utilize it. And it just deals way too much damage.
But
Mhm.
besides that, also if you compare like the amount of defense units we have to the amount of attack units we have, for example, I think it's like for useful units, it's like 6 to 1, maybe 7 to 1.
I
More
think it's
defense units come to us. Make the defense
Yeah.
units better. 2A defense units. I'm ready for it.
fine.
Wait, I
Grab
don't.
my hand.
Wait, bulldozer 2A?
Yeah,
Or
that
the
would be
whole
Oh
sick.
boy.
tractor
A
is
tractor
actually pretty
2A would
good.
be sick.
Tractor is actually good on additional damage for defense.
I think that a 2A crawler could actually be really strong for siege.
Yeah.
Especially with how many people like run mollies right now. Like imagine you like a vampire destroy tractor. Like that thing is gonna do a lot of damage as well. Just like it naturally does a lot of damage because of its passive. But like you 2A, you give it 4.5-star stats. Suddenly, like we have more counters for siege, which also sucks because then all of our defenses suck again.
Yeah, as long as they buff some more defense units.
Yeah. I don't know. There's this
Um,
weird balance.
yeah.
Things are always just like that.
I could see Frankenstein's getting a 2A soon. Because I mean I didn't really expect the higher elementals to get the 2A because I was like, oh, Kali's gonna be too broken. But I think they managed to balance it enough so that
Yeah.
she's not too broken. So they could
Mhm.
probably do a similar thing for Bulldozer. He'll still fulfill the same niche as before anyway. But it's gonna be so easy to ruin him, especially on a swift bulldozer. It's gonna be really easy to ruin. So they need
I
to
think
be
2Aing that
careful
actually gives them
around
the potential to use him in
doing it.
RTA though. I think that's kind of what
Yep.
I'm looking for more than anything else. Like giving these units with good kits, giving them enough stat to actually like compete at a higher level is really what I want from 2As.
But do you think they'll want the meta to become as dominated by kind of 3-star, like 2A units, like it was a few years ago? I feel like they'll still want it to
Are
be
you
more
talking
dominated
about
by
Lulu?
the ones that you. I mean, there's one, but the units that you pair Lulu with are mostly
That's funny.
at 5s
Mostly
This
light and
Lulu
dark now
and
for
other
us.
2As.
compared to back, like Franverd, Lauren.
Franverd, Lauren Ager meta. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it is good for the game. I do think it's good for the game. Giving
Oh
people
man,
more
that's
options
the
to kind
meta
of
I
get
hated
into
the
it.
most.
Man, that's the
It
meta
was
I
the
like
most
the most.
RNG meta out there ever.
I just liked Ager because I thought it was fun. The unit was fun.
Yeah.
I mostly hated like the friend when it was still stunning with Lauren Vert.
Fran stuns, man. That's a throwback.
Yeah, that was so stupid. Friend on
Throwback.
revenge. It was like,
Oh,
yo, what is this, man?
Pie Boss, we miss you already. Welcome back.
Sorry. Just my internet doing its thing.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, so we talked about additional damage. I think we're all pretty in agreement that additional damage needs like some sort of nerf, whether it's doesn't ignore defense or deals less damage, etc. Like just something to keep in mind. Okay, now I do want to ask. This is a question I've always had in mind. I think it is the dumbest mechanic in the game. I think it is terrible because it's extremely inconsistent and it really trivializes a lot of things in the game. But I feel like strips and resets applying on glance and not actually being able to glance is a terrible mechanic in the game. What are your thoughts on that? Like if I glance your Chung Pung strip chance doesn't change. It's exactly the same no matter what element I am as well.
I would
think
say
it
you
would-
kind of need to have it that way because otherwise, like strips and increased cooltime are two things that are like really, I don't know, really important to land. You know, like if you don't land it, it really screws you up. And if you have like, for example, if you do it with the strips, and you think about AoE strippers, you will rarely have the situation that you're actually like element neutral against everyone on the other side. So I would say basically every normal elemental AoE strip would just be off the radar.
Yeah, that's gonna
Mhm.
make
LD
Gianna
strippers would
way
yeah,
too
LD strippers
OP.
would be too OP. Way
Yeah.
too OP.
So
Like,
there's the balance of it. It's like
Boonside Gianna would be like
LD
off the chain.
become
I wouldn't
insane.
say they are getting OP because of it, because they don't really get buffed because of it, right? But just everyone who doesn't have LD strips just basically can't use AoE strips anymore. They all
Well,
have to do
indirectly,
single target
that's a
strips.
buff.
Yeah, okay, indirectly. But it's like if you play against it, then it doesn't really.
Same as like, for
affect as
example, the
much.
moment Moore and Jeogun were really good, it is indirectly a nerf to Gianna.
Yeah.
Because they have speed leads, they are not needed to be on will and have higher base stats, and therefore it's like indirectly a nerf to Gianna.
The
Yeah, okay,
only
from that
one
perspective.
season ever where Gianna was not dominant.
Well, she was still dominant.
She was still
there, but
she
more
was
in-
still good, but she
Not-
wasn't
She
as
was still
good.
good, yeah.
Not the best unit in the
Yeah.
game.
Mhm.
Only the second best.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to like for glancing debuff. I understand, but for elements, I would keep it as is. But then,
I think that's
Yeah.
fair. Glancing debuff applying that might be a little bit different.
yeah,
The only thing in current meta, at least, that I have an issue with that is that I think it makes Haegang too strong. I do
Haegang.
think that if we make that change to glancing debuff or
Haegang.
to pardon?
I think Haegang is actually a. I mean, I wish I had a Haegang, but he's a really important unit to
He is.
exist to at least keep some broken units like Gianna.
Yeah, I think
Check.
Haegang's like concept as a unit, like the way they designed him, is something this game needed really badly, right?
Yeah.
Because they've power crept the concept of taking turn one so aggressively, and to be honest, he also makes taking turn one pretty strong.
Yep.
Because if he's your biggest counter pick, you just pick him first, right? With Haegang, it's like that style of unit that enables people to take turn two more effectively, I think is really good for the game. Because for so long we've had this situation where it's like, you know when they buffed Josephine, for example, they also buffed all the units that shut down turn two. And it was just like a weird like imbalance perspective, I think. But yeah, and like in terms of Haegang, I honestly think outside of Lulu, I really feel like Haegang might be the best unit in the game right now for like regular elementals.
Carnal.
Carnal. Yeah, I would totally agree with
I
Carnal.
actually put Haegang just a little bit above Carnal. It's very close though. It's very close. And the only reason I pick Haegang over Carnal is because I think Haegang enables more in the game than Carnal does. But it's so hard because Carnal is so good.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean,
thing. Like,
Haegang has counters. Carnal doesn't really have counters.
yeah, that's also like, for example, I make the tier list and stuff, and most of the time I look at like, okay, can you draft it in pretty much every draft, and is it successful in
I
pretty
pick
much
Haegang
every
first.
draft?
First pick Haegang every game. I stopped first picking
Pick it
Carnal.
first.
Actually, I never really first picked Carnal, but I stopped first picking Chung Pung and Carnal and just first pick Haegang because I feel it's like really flexible for me. For me at
If you
least.
first
Right?
pick Haegang, they can just not pick strippers, basically.
Yeah,
They don't have to though. The thing is, like, I just get a free stripper, right? I feel like a free, really good turn one stripper. Like, I don't actually need Haegang's passive for Haegang to be effective.
well,
The
funny
only thing that
about-
he's a disadvantage is no speed lead, right?
there's actually some funny mechanics with Haegang that people don't see too often. For example, like a Haegang into a Chow. Every time Chow
Yeah.
takes a turn, you boost your whole team.
Yeah.
If you have
20% attack bar.
Yeah, but like, let's say you. The funny thing is, at some point, I was just fooling around with Haegang plus Marsha. Marsha gets boosted for double every time that the enemy cleanses something.
True.
So if you put
40% attack bar.
yeah, no, like especially if you put it against the Juno, Marsha
Mhm.
also is a really good counter into a Juno, for example.
Okeanos skill on transfer is another one that people don't always see either.
Also, that like yeah, those kind of things. Like you have a lot of like those small cleanses that you think like, okay, wait, or someone picked like a Rakuni into me just for fun, and I was like, okay, Haegang plus Marsha, and every time the Rakuni took a turn, the Marsha took like half of its HP bar or attack bar. So that's just That's just a funny
Mhm.
thing too.
Yeah,
Besides
cool
just having the only issue is like there's often when people draft Haegangs, they either lack damage, they lack follow-up, or they just lack like any form of sustain, or they pick it without any immunity or any other buffs. So then you're like you have your first strip, and then afterwards Haegang passive for the strip doesn't do anything. So
Mhm.
that's sometimes the issue with people like overdrafting Haegang.
Does it really work on like the CM Pst skill 1? Because it's
Yep.
Yes.
technically not a cleanse, it's a transfer.
If
It's a
you
transfer, but it works.
you don't even have to
Okay.
transfer the debuff. As long as you get rid of the debuff, it counts as
Yep.
a cleanse, which is kind of cool. So you don't even have
Weird.
to. So if I throw away like a defense break and you resist it, you still get attack bar from Haegang passive.
Yep.
Which is pretty busted.
I wonder whether that was intended. Because it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it being a cleanse technically.
I firmly believe nothing in this game is intended. It's all just a fun accident. We kind of just
Yeah.
figure it out as we go. You know, BJR5 probably wasn't intended. Nothing like that was ever intended, but you know, it exists. It
Well,
exists.
if we talk about
Shikara?
intended or not intended, like the interactions with Triana, either taking a turn and cutting units or not taking a turn and cutting units, the way that one is programmed, and I actually wrote a ticket about it, and they're like, yeah, it's intended like that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure not, but it just happened to be like this. Because, like, for example, if you have Triana against an Alicia, if Alicia takes another turn after a kill on the S3, right? But if after the buff that Alicia can stun on the S3, if Triana is stunned on that S3, she gets full attack bar, and then Alicia takes a turn because she was stunned during the turn, and then Alicia takes a turn. But if Triana is not stunned, then Triana takes the turn, and there's no attack bar on the Alicia and no second turn. Yep. What?
Yeah, because it
It's
doesn't
very
give you
stupid.
it doesn't give you attack bar.
Are
for
you
Alicia,
sure
just,
they-
it's just an extra turn or no turn?
Like when you wrote the ticket, are you sure they understood what you wanted?
Probably
No,
not.
probably not. 9 out of 10. Like I also know, like a fun fact. Like when we were in Korea 2019, I went on Tinder. I was Tinder swipe like a little bit. I matched one of the come to us ticket workers from Korea. I'm not joking.
Damn.
So I couldn't get any intel because
You
of
got
that.
the in.
But the funny thing is, they also said like a lot of the people that work on like the other games at some point, if Summoners War is getting too many tickets, people from the other games have to answer the tickets of Summoners War. So that's where you sometimes just get like copy paste or whatever. But also imagines how many stupid tickets you must get every day. Like they literally get tickets like, oh, this event doesn't have a Devilmon. 10 tickets, 100 tickets. Oh, this event doesn't have an LD but it has the Devilmon. 100 tickets. And they have to answer every single ticket. That's like any ticket system, you always have to answer every single ticket. But how you answer doesn't matter. So that's why you kind of get like this interaction sometimes.
Yeah, I can't imagine being like a customer support worker for a mobile game. That sounds like pain. That just sounds like pain. You just get people complaining about everything, literally everything. Like, I summon scrolls. Why don't I get a NAF5? Or like,
Oh, I
How
swear
many tickets
all of,
did you
like, probably
send for your LB
99%
raid?
of the tickets will be like that.
probably.
OnceInLuv, how many tickets did you send for your LB raid yet?
I've never sent a ticket for
You should
anything
start
relevant.
doing that.
I have only ever
Going
actually I've never sent a
until you get
comp to a
one.
support ticket. Because there's 2 times I've ever needed actual like game support. Oh no, that's all. I sent one. I sent one support ticket to come to us because 500 of my summoning stones disappeared one time, and I was like, or my transmog stones, and I was like, where did these go? And I linked them my VOD showing I had them, and then I linked them the later part of the same VOD showing they were just gone. And they gave me back all of them. They actually gave me back 500 transmog stones. I was like, that's sick. I would have been so sad because I farmed for like, I think it took me
That
like
takes a
probably
long
back then
time.
it took me like a year to farm those because that
Yeah,
was
no,
like that
that's
was
a
when
lot.
R5 first came out, and that was pain.
Even right
Yeah,
now,
other
it will take you a good amount of crystals to get that much.
It's nicer that we can farm really fast and we have like auto farming, but like getting transmog stones is still one of the hardest things in the game.
Pretty much. Well, it depends how much you use them. You can also look at Pinkroyd, just never use them.
That's true.
But yeah, then you have them for not using them.
I mean, I think he just likes hoarding. He hoards his
Yeah.
mana.
I mean, if he really
farm
wants
crystals.
transmogs, he'll just buy them.
Yeah.
I should send Com to us a support message and say, look, I've streamed your game for this many years. I'm suing for damages. suing for my mental health instability. Please send help.
You could try.
Too much Lulu.
Good
Too
luck.
much Lulu.
Well, before it was too much Molly, they tuned that one down a little bit.
I actually didn't hate Molly, to be honest.
I still hate Molly.
I didn't hate Molly because I ran a lot of damage, so it really wasn't as concerning for me. If I glanced, I was like, all right, I glanced, whatever. But like most of the games, I didn't really run a lot of control when Molly was like super popular, so I didn't get as frustrated from it. But I get it. I also had a Molly, so it
We
wasn't
still
as
have a lot of
frustrating for
Molly
me.
in Siege. We have one guild like taking over one guild that was actually in the. It went for like the match of the top 8 to get to top 4, and there was one guild mainly spamming Molly, but they also predicted really well, and they took out the guild that was Legends 2 seasons ago or 3. 2, yeah. So
God
that was pretty impressive, and this guild was actually struggling against Molly. So yeah.
That was us yesterday. We struggled against Molly. Oh my god. Molly and Alsharian. Carcano, Alsharian, Triana. Not sure how we
Oh,
struggled so much against it.
Was
but
that
we did.
malicious?
No, that was Sinfully Deep actually. It wasn't malicious. We didn't fight malicious or SSA. Meta's kind of weird in global. I feel like right now specifically, I think it's a little weird. But a lot of people have kind of gone back to like, hey, let's just make things so tanky that you just can't kill them.
Weirder the
Right.
better.
And then just RNG the hell out of you. Okay, 2 questions alongside this because we brought it up. We did kind of bring it up earlier, but we didn't really go into it. So I was asking about what you guys think based on like good Molong Lulu counters. You know, we kind of talked about like where to pick certain things, like whether it's like the Sierra or Diana, etc., and just being ready for that. I want to try out using Hathor again, just because I think that 2-turn sleep has the potential to go into Lulu effectively. Probably going to sit here and hate myself for it after playing 10 million games of like every game goes to 40% attack, 40%. You know, I have my minus water Fuki that I've been using for a long time to counter the Molongs. But
Yeah.
you two actually were talking about something specific. You brought up Cigar, and I know that Stoic
yes.
loves this unit. I think this unit is terrible without a ragdoll.
Me
But
too.
I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, it first happened when my Molong Lulu got destroyed by a Segar because he just kept provoking. He reset the Lulu and he just kept provoking the Molong with skill 1 and 2. But part of that was just because he got a lot of procs. I think in terms of, when you want to look for a counter, he's not the most reliable. He doesn't do additional damage or anything like that. But I think having that strip reset on a wind unit, the only other one I can think of, well, there's Chongpeng, which is one of the best soft counters or even semi-hard counters to Molong Lulu, and then there's Chiclid. I think Cigar is better than Chiclid. Both of them don't bring anywhere near as much as Chongpeng, but they fulfill a similar role if you don't have Chongpeng, I say. And you want to go down the reset route. I think in general, what you need to deal with Molong Lulu is to bring a lot of damage. So Cigar won't do a huge amount of damage. You will need to have the follow-up as well if you're going to bring Cigar.
I think all of the Bisons that do the S2 that does Cigar, so that's the dark, wind, and the water one, should get a turn 2 armor break. Or like 2 turns armor break.
I actually agree with that. I feel like on
because I
skill
think
2,
all
like
three
skill
of
2's
them-
on the weaker side.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them are kind of weak, and the S1 is actually a good skill. Look at Carnal. Carnal is good because of a good kit with a good S1. But the S2 is just 1 turn armor break just doesn't work for pretty much any unit.
For me personally, those are mostly like the situations where I actually pick the Rakan even on ladder. If you go like wind heavy to counter the Molong, then I think the opponent can basically just go with Diana and stuff, and they can still like the Molong can still focus the wind unit. So by going like more of a route for the fire units, which seems, I don't know, a little bit weird at first, but the Diana, for example, can't focus the fire unit, so only the Molong can actually focus the threat. So even though it seems weird to go fire into double water, it kind of makes sense.
So you're
But
saying
then again, your
ZB
comp also
opening up
has
with wind, right?
your comp also has the heavy protection because of the 2 support units that have S3 protection, Vanessa and Triana. So
Yeah, of course.
that also makes Molong a lot less like threatful in general, I think.
Yes.
Wait, wouldn't be Triana a good counter into Molong then?
It always has been.
Yeah. But
think it's
I
I
guess
think
it's
it's still
you
pretty
don't see
effective.
that much at the moment otherwise. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. Vanessa
I
Triana.
still think it's kind of like with the cigar that the other 3 picks have to be kind of impactful because the
strong.
Triana's probably
Yep.
just gonna die turn 1. So yeah,
You
protecting
either
the
die
other
turn
3
1
units.
or it gets banned. It gets banned a lot of the time.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yesterday when Sean rated me, I was like, Sean, what should I use in RTA today? And he's like, just use Triana. And I was like, this is going terribly. So I did it. I used Triana every game. I ended up at the end of it, I ended up with a Triana with minus 18% water because I was so tired of getting Molong sniped. And then I just gave up and just started first picking Molong every game. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of things that are tough. The plus element damage I think has made Molong really, really good. Alongside the additional damage by HP. Like he just shreds you. Even without a defense break, he does so much damage.
I think in general, heavy single target damage is good against Melon Lulu or just this general meta right now. So I mean, some of those will be light dart units like Bella or Han, but Ciara is probably the go-to. If you can pair Ciara with a good stripper, so that she can land the bomb turn 1, but not one but one potentially with some other utility. Yang Hong is an obvious one, but then I think Escher is also a good one to pair with the Ciara. And then some additional, I guess Nikki as well. But yeah, I mean a lot of these units are quite
Nikki's
rare,
solid. I want a
but
Nikki
just
so
Yeah.
bad.
heavy damage that's kind of preferably single target, but just heavy damage in general in order to kind of shut the Melong Lulu down before Lulu can actually use that skill 3 and skill 2 to get the team back up.
Mhm.
Wait, what if they combine the passive from what's it called? The passive from Abelio and the passive from the water Slayer. So it takes a
Oh,
turn when the
Abelio's
enemy
pretty good
goes
jump.
below 30% HP. Instead
To
of
instantly destroy it.
yeah,
That could be interesting. It could be kind of
because
spicy.
now it's very hard to tune right in between, right?
Yeah.
So if they would combine that, it also makes this unit like get some use.
I would be interested to see if that would make Water Bison strong enough for siege defense. I know people were trying it a little bit when they made his
Yeah.
change, but a lot of people just found like even though you can destroy a lot of HP, you just can't kill with it, right?
Water Bison is amazing for siege offense. So
Mhm.
I think he has his place already. Maybe not in the current meta, but definitely in certain metas and future metas. He is the strongest destroy unit in the game, arguably. I think his
Does he also
element
have a limit
is
of how much he can destroy? Because normal destroy runes go to like 70% or something, right?
60.
It's the
60.
same, I think.
So,
Yeah,
that's too
I
bad.
think it is limited at 60%.
Okay.
Because if you could destroy more than 60%, that unit would probably just kill everything. Like they would never struggle against things. Would
Well,
be interesting to see though. If you could make
I don't
if
mind.
like Borgnine could destroy down to like 10% HP, for example, like
Yeah,
you just never lose it.
Borgnine has his place already, I think, as a siege offense unit. Because not only does he destroy the unit, you've also got the second part of the passive, which reduces the damage. So in the end, especially if they buff the skill 2, he could like just solo stuff potentially. Yeah, in the right team, or maybe even 2-man. Not that you're supposed to, do that, but he does give the potential for that kind of cheese offense.
Isn't he still kind of like still worse than Chao and Suiki, I would say?
For RTA, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of his main problem. He would need to kind of surpass those two, which fulfill a similar role.
What do you guys think about Chao? I think Chao is overrated.
I also think Chao is overrated. There's like a very few times you actually can pick Chao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so many times you just like sure it can cleanse one dot, but if it would cleanse every dot, it would be good. But you can just stack so many dots, decrease attack bar. He's done.
The hard thing with Chao is like it's really hard to rune a good Chao. Like you need a lot of stats.
So
And even then, like, because it has to have 100 crit, or it like doesn't really do enough because you're picking it into water and fire usually, and you have to have enough HP, attack, and speed to actually do any damage. And then you also generally want defense too, and you still get ripped apart by additional damage.
But isn't
I
that
think-
kind of true for like every bruiser?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part, most bruisers are pretty bad, but he's especially worse because he's a crit damage bruiser instead of like
Yeah,
a
I
fixed
mean,
damage
like
bruiser
for
or an
every
additional
crit damage
bruiser.
bruiser. That's
Yeah.
kind of what
He-
you need.
He has an advantage just by having like crit awaken. And like the change to passive is nice, but I think if they don't make the change to passive 2 buffs, I think it's too much because it's exactly like Seiishizo said, where it's like you just debuff the Chow a couple times and like it just doesn't do anything, right?
What units currently would you run on Destroy? Because I think Destroy for RTA would make sense in some comps. Like if someone goes like really, like Chow is one of those units you could run on Destroy, for example. But I feel like it takes too long for Destroy to kick in. But I also think Destroy would be too strong in Siege if you would buff it in some kind of way. Would Destroy just be good as is and just not for RTA and just for Siege?
I don't ever
Because
see
Destroy is
Destroy
actually
being useful in RTA, to be honest, because you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
the HP reduction attack increase
True.
anyway. That's like basically like the Destroy for everyone that kicks in every single match. You don't
True.
need like the runes for it anymore.
The only 2 units I ever see Destroy on, and it's way less common because one of these units is never picked anymore, was Artemil and Fengyan.
Yep.
I think people using Destroy Fengyan actually was fairly good just because you could use it to break down Molly's faster and you could use it to break down Artemil's faster if you were using it as a counter pick. And then for Artemil, you could use it against people who are picking like Molong's comps. You just destroy their HP down a little bit more so they struggle against you. But even then, like it was super niche and it wasn't the best. Like a lot of the times Will is going to be stronger or just something that gives you more stats.
I think another issue for Destroy is that because of additional damage, I would say the early game of a match just got way stronger. So usually matches aren't as long anymore as they like were in the past. And Destroy is really like a late game thing. So most matches just don't last long enough for Destroy to actually come and play.
Would you put Destroy on Leona?
No, I put Revenge on her.
No.
Or Will.
Like when you're in late game, she basically one shots.
True, yeah.
If she gets the
one-shots anyway,
turn,
so it doesn't
so
matter.
yeah.
Will Revenge or stats, right?
Yeah, I think Revenge is probably the best one.
Oh, both of you guys have Leona. Yeah.
Nemesis
Yes.
could also be potential too, right? Because if somebody actually does get a defense break on you, you get the turn and then you can violent proc. Even then, it's not that. It's so niche. It's not probably not worth it.
Yeah, but you
Like-
also wouldn't want that violent proc kind of.
Oh, I just meant if you. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
I
It would
mean,
only
you
help
wanted
if
to
you
get
got,
out
like,
of the
broken or
defense break,
something.
but if you get low enough that Nemesis would like come into play, then
You're probably dead anyways, right?
you're probably dead because
Yeah.
you're out of the shield then after the proc. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking like when you said who would be useful in Destroy, like I was thinking like units like Leica and like Gagger and stuff, and then I'm like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just put them on something else? Like Leica, you just put on Nemesis or you put it on Will. It's like it's very hard. You really have to have something that's better than Will, I think, in a lot of situations for people to actually like pick a different set. Especially in I feel like in current meta,
Point.
Will is so good.
It's usually either Will or Broken, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm struggling
Broken
to
is
think
also
of
pretty
any.
nice because of the length of the time that we're farming and we're getting like all kinds of weird runes we can
I guess
use for
Revenge.
Will,
efficiency.
Revenge, and Broken are the 3 sets you see a lot right now.
Yeah, there's a good number of units that are good enough on Revenge. You even see Revenge Oracles sometimes.
Despair
But yeah,
Revenge
apart
is
from
so
that,
funny.
And the
Oh,
occasional Nemesis is cool.
I was playing on this account, I'm not joking. I had a Despair Revenge Rika and I laughed my ass off, man. And it was the hula hoop Rika. So every time it went for a revenge, you got a fucking hula hoop at your face and you went to sleep. I'm like, yo, this is so stupid, man. It's
Oh,
literally
man.
the stupidest thing like in life that I've ever seen.
I actually fought a Despair Revenge Annabelle, and I said to my chat, I was like, look, if this thing sleeps me on Revenge 3 times, I'll give you guys 5 subs. It's like, there's no way I'm losing to this Annabelle's revenging me. She revenged my wind unit, she revenged my Sierra, and slept her on the first hit. I was like, okay, this is gonna be one of those matches today, guys.
Oh man, it's so stupid.
You know, off element slept for like a tiny percent chance, and it's revenge. It's just like the stars aligned for stuff like that.
what do you think is the least useful rune set with an effect?
With an effect?
Yeah.
In RTA
As
specifically?
not just in general. I mean, RTA is probably Destroy maybe, but in
Yeah, I
general,
guess Destroy for RTA.
Destroy is the best
otherwise-
offset for in Siege, I'd say.
Yeah.
That has an effect, not stats, right? So you know, you're like not blade.
Yeah,
not...
if you're talking stats, it's probably like energy or.
If it's stats, I think it's
Energy
actually
or
guard
focus.
now. Just because
I guess
additional
so.
damage rips through defense, right?
Most of the time, like if you have a guard set, it happened to be like a 28, 29 on a speed unit or something.
Or like a 39% HP rune, like with grinds and shit.
Something like that.
I think we're excluding like fight runes and like tolerance runes and shit like that, right? Like we're not counting those.
Yeah, I only use one set of fight in all of my RTA units, and I got like 60 units in RTA runes.
I'd say, yeah. I'm talking about for me. I was thinking shield is probably the least useful.
In RTA, I think it's shield
general.
and destroy. Well, the thing is, because like shield and destroy are both really good in siege.
Shield is very good in PvE.
It's
true. Shield is really good in PvE as well.
That's true.
It's hard. I think it really depends on each
Orion counter back then, but you don't see Orion in siege anymore. But yeah, I found that like for me at least, I use my shield runes at least. And then obviously in the R5 runes is like tolerance and
I think tolerance is actually the worst now because artifacts give everything accuracy. So it's like, why would you even run tolerance?
Wait, where's tolerance, boy?
Yeah. Rip Pokemango. Reapping his tolerance
Pokemon,
runes. And then they released artifacts and just screwed him over completely.
Yeah, like I haven't seen him in ages. He was actually like he barely played on ladder, but he always had like a crazy win rate.
Rip Pokemango. Contour screwed him over. They nerfed his tolerance runes, man. They nerfed his tolerance runes.
And then they also nerfed his Ragdoll Artemil with the Onimushas.
True. It's really interesting how they brought out the Onimujis in the same patch as the Onimushas, but the Onimujis have basically had no impact on the meta, whereas the Onimushas are just everywhere.
Yeah. Man, Shizuka's fun, but I don't think she's very good.
She's like JMac was trying there in the but I was like, no man. Literally, like if you pick a Juno against a Shizuka, it's immediately done. Like the unit pretty much doesn't do anything.
It's really good if you can catch your opponent off guard completely with it. Like if it's a slot 5 pick, you can make it work. But the thing that makes it like really, really hard in general is that she's just like a YouTube highlights unit. Like you get really cool flashy plays, but like that's it. That's it. Like I guess like I Ganny had thwarted someone with Ganny, Karnal, Chungpong, and Shizuka, just because like every time you just pop Shizuka skill 3, it's like, okay, now I have immunity again. But like I don't think that means it's good. Like Hathor would have just been so much better in that draft.
Yeah.
I think
actually for the last
really cool
units, the last units that they like produced or like released are so bad. Like look at the like both for the Onimushas and the Onmyojis, we at least had like half of it was good and the other half was like whatever. This time we have like 10 new units, and I'm not gonna lie, light and dark everything, all 10 are bad. They're niche by best.
I think the dark one is really good if you have the right draft for it.
More than the surfers.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the robos are actually pretty fun. The dark robo is pretty cool. I think the scalings need tweaks though, but the concept behind it is really cool to me.
Yeah, I like also the animation is really cool, but I'm like, I don't really feel it like being used anywhere.
Off surfers, please.
Yes,
surfers.
I don't know. Like anyone was like, I pulled new server. I'm like, yeah, but this one doesn't really do anything. And like, but which one does something? It's like, none.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I got John. I got the one that's actually like pretty good.
True, that one is decent.
Yeah.
But still, then I prefer Sion over John like pretty much every match.
The stat different. Like the nice thing about John is that they actually gave him a cooldown reset on skill 2. Like I think without that, I do think he would be completely garbage. Because you would just pick Sion every single time, right?
But I think also for these let's say a family and the whole family is bad. It's mostly because they have a bad S1. Like they don't do too much unique stuff in their kit, but they also have a bad S1, and therefore the whole family is just bad. Like if you would buff the S1 of the Omnioji, which is like terrible, it's the worst strip rate ever. It doesn't do any damage, it doesn't do anything. If you would buff that, like pretty much maybe 1 or 2 would instantly be interesting. And I think with the server, same thing.
It's not the worst, but it's not like amazing. It's basically like, isn't it attack bar steal? I thought it wasn't just pushback. It's a steal, isn't it?
The
surfers?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's a steal for the surfers. For the
Yeah.
Omiyujis, it's a strip, like a low chance strip.
Yeah,
or
the
something.
Omiyojis have a fucking terrible skill.
Literally,
It's like 75% chances from one buff, I think, if you skill it.
if you compare it, it's like doing chilling as 1, but then you only have 1 hit instead of 3.
Sorry, it's 80% chance to strip with skill 1.
The Archangels is the same, but 100%. Like,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
the Sky
it's
Super is not bad. 'Cause
directly worse
it's
than
a
Archangel.
70% chance to steal 15% attack bar. It's not just reduction, it's a steal.
Yeah,
So it's like somewhat comparable to the Art Masters, but I would say slightly worse. I think the Art Masters still have a better skill
It's
one.
not the worst skill one. It's the skill 2.
No, but like if you would buff like skill 1
Really
for all of
useless.
them, at least make it useful, then
Yeah,
you got
fair.
something to work with.
Mhm.
Currently, well, the whole kit of like pretty much all of them is kind of like what?
But
Same
you,
with the
you do
light
have
one.
a lot of. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that you have a lot of families where their skill 1 is just like a dot, like the Hell Ladies or the Chimeras,
Mhm.
or they're not the worst families in the world.
Honestly,
No,
a
sure.
dot on skill 1 is not bad. I mean, it's 5% damage,
Yeah.
right?
Ifrit. Oh, okay, Ifrit has
5%
speed scaling.
5% ignore defense damage, and they have speed scaling too.
Yeah,
Ifrit.
it kind of adds up. Like for example, sometimes you would rather do S1 for the dot damage on the Dragon Knights rather than going
Dragon
for an
Knights.
S2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
That's
yeah,
actually.
for
Yeah,
some
oh,
people
just
they were like,
you talk.
I love
You
it. I
talk.
love it. I love it.
yeah. No, like some people were saying like, yeah, but the light one is really good. Like the light server. I'm like, light server makes sense, but it's really one of those FIFA Child Josephine combinations. On paper, sounds amazing. Like you Ganymede, S3, everyone low attack bar, and then you just drop like half HP on everyone. It's like, yeah, but you have kind of, if you have that much setup, you have units that just one shot the whole team rather than bringing it to 50% HP. So
I think
it's
the
one of
dark
those
one's
setups on
actually
paper
better
sounds
than the
really
light
cool.
one.
Sorry,
I think the dark one's actually better than the light one.
what does the dark one was an inverted
the
Tian
dark
Lang,
one
right?
is inverted Tianling. It's actually really good with oracles, and it's really good with Beast Rider, with Masha and
Yeah,
stuff like
true.
that. And
But he
Verd,
takes a lot of.
you.
He would be really good if the S1 was better because he takes a lot of turns.
Mhm. Yeah, I
He
agree.
takes a lot of
Honestly,
useless turns.
if you run enough attack bar manipulation overall, I think it works really effectively. And the reason that I think it works effectively with Jackson is just because he has a 100% strip into stun on skill 2, and he does gain attack bar, right? So like if he's gaining attack bar on skill 1, he is technically rotating a little bit faster.
True, but
Do you have
Baus
one,
like-
boss?
Yeah, Baus has one. He pulled one like first day. Second day.
I got him like the night before I was due to cast, like my first day of casting, I think.
Nice. Okay.
The
Thoughts?
look confirmed. But I really like his passive. So the first part of the passive, he gains attack bar, 5% attack bar, but it's actually 7.5% because of the second part of his passive. If the enemy reduces, well, actually, if anyone reduces attack bar, and then the second part of his passive is also reverse Tianlang, but it doubles the effect of attack bar increasing skills. So he'd go well with like a Verd or oracles and stuff. But the problem is not that. I think his passive is really cool. The problem is his skill 2, which is the main skill you'd want to use. It has a 2-turn cooldown, but it's a strip and then a 50% chance to stun. So basically, he has a cool passive, and then he does absolutely nothing with his skills. He'll take a turn and do nothing.
So
like
like what do you run it
70%
on?
of the time, it will
stat-wise?
take a turn and do nothing.
Like, do you just run it on Swift?
I put mine on Swift, but just as like a meme unit, praying that he stuns. I think if you have max accuracy, the chance to stun is like below 40.
Sounds like an
37
amazing unit
range,
if you
yeah.
start with like I'm praying him to do something.
I think that's another thing is like a lot of these units that have one chance to do something, like they also suffer from the single hit issue. Everything goes back to additional damage. If you can't run additional damage on a unit and it doesn't have oppressive skills, it sucks.
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge difference between him and Tianlang for sure. Tianlang has so many.
Tianlang just obliterate.
like,
Tianlang also has
armor break
defense
as one. Armor break as one with multi-hit armor break.
The difference in skills is just insane between the two. And Tianlang's passive is better as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
So it's just like
True. But Tianlang I would rate like top 3 LDs at the moment.
Maybe top 1. potentially.
Yeah, there's a good chance. Well, I haven't seen that much TL length lately, but
It's good
I
against
have to
I
Haegang.
think
still
on
make the new
ladder-
tier list, but I don't
On
know.
ladder,
TL length
he's
is
just
crazy.
shuts down so many things.
Yep.
Having that in your pocket.
Okay. Question for all of you guys, because I do want to wrap up the podcast here around the hour and a half mark. One last question for all of you guys. It should be about 10 minutes. I want to go in the order. I want to go in this way. So I want to ask Seiishizo, and then I want to ask Livert, and then I want to ask Boss this question. So you have time to think about it. If you can buff one unit right now in the game, what is it and why are you doing it? And it can be for any content in the game. It can be for any reason. It can be as unreasonable as you think as you want. You could say the dumbest thing, whatever you want, but I want to know what it is and I want to know why.
I want to buff Lulu just to see you quit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll just build 10 Lulus for Siege if that's the case. And I'll just-
no, but
I'll
someone's
just
got to
become-
first pick
I'll
it
just
against
become
you
a,
and you're
I'll
done.
I'll just become a full-time Siege player. You'll never see me touch RTA ever again. It'll never happen.
No,
never
like,
happen.
realistically, I don't know. I would like to see some of the LDs buff, but of course, you're only gonna name the LDs that you have because you're not really looking at the others. So
And I want Dark Monkey King to get a buff. That thing is terrible.
yeah. Oh, you have one?
No, I don't, but I've used
Oh
it
wait,
on
you
so
don't
many
have
people's
any.
accounts.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think
But,
his
yeah.
skill 3 needs to be a multi-hit.
Yeah, no, not even multi-hit. It's just like I would trade in that unit. Like, to be fair, I would trade in the 2-turn armor break for, instead of having a 60% activation rate, 1-turn armor break, 100% activation rate.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's like a lot of those buffs and nerfs. I don't really want to like stuff to be like super overtuned or anything, but those kind of buffs I would seem like, yeah, that's fair. But still, buff Lulu.
Buff Lulu. Okay, if you were to buff Lulu, how would you buff Lulu? Realistically, what would you actually give Lulu?
Realistically, I would make S3 a passive to apply it every turn.
Oh my god, you're making it a better Amelia. You're actually toxic.
No, but including the heal and the 2-turn immunity. But there's no immunity if it was cleansed.
Oh
So
my
to keep it
God.
fair.
It's like Raccoony and Amelia had a baby.
Yeah.
And it's stronger and it's got
No,
oh
but
my
to
god.
be honest,
that's
if you would
disgusting.
just take all of Lulu's skill, including the S1, and put it on Ariel.
Yeah.
That would be fair for Ariel. Yeah, Ariel's shit. And Lulu's really OP.
I think Ariel should have built-in destroy. Every time you heal, you destroy the enemy's HP.
That would be fun. Reverse
I'd be
destroy.
down. Reverse
Or you
destroy.
destroy your own team. Oh wait.
No, you every time you heal, you destroy the enemy based on the healing difference.
Could be fun.
All right,
okay.
boss, what do you think?
Is it me next? I'm still thinking. I feel like it's really hard to pick one, isn't it?
Okay.
My immediate
Okay.
thought
I'll give you some more time. I'll
Water
give you some more
slime.
time.
Okay,
So, like,
I'll
if-
go with water slime.
Water slime. I'll give you some time.
Buff the devil
I'll do mine first. I think the unit that I want to see buffed the most is Lexi. I want to see Lexi buffed the most. And the reason I want to see Lexi buffed the most is because I feel like Lexi was a really good concept for the game. They were like, hey, let's produce healing. And let's make this unit that like punishes people who bring constant healers. But they really fucked it up halfway. They were like, let's just build this unit that's like super squishy. Has very, very hard conditions to hit for damage. Lexi's the fire assassin. So Lexi's biggest issue is that you can deal a ton of damage if you build it for it, but you're also paper and you can't life drain either because you also get reduced 50% healing. So running her on vampire sucks. Running her on violent generally also sucks. But she feels like the unit that could have been such a cool counter pick into the meta. It's like, yeah, if people want to use Lulu or people want to use Fran or Molly or whatever, you pick Lexi and you can just kill something instantly. But I think what I want to see for a buff for her is I would like to see it so that when her ignore defense comes up, she instantly gains a turn. So she really punishes people who run a lot of healers. She would be incredibly good in Special League, and she has the potential to actually be good in like a regular RTA draft as well. And I think she also could have the potential to be used in Siege. But I also think that her reduced healing should not apply to herself. I don't think it should apply to herself. I think it's ridiculous that she also like she basically cannot be run on vampire no matter what. It's so bad. I don't know. Random unit. That's my thoughts. I want to buff a 4-star unit that I think has a really cool passive.
How about they would increase her healing on her passive? So it's very useful to run it vamp.
That would be fine too. I'd be fine with that. Or just like her passive doesn't apply to herself, so you can run her on vamp, right? But increased healing could be cool too. I do think that her getting like attack bar or like some sort of instant turn when people are healing, I think would be fine. So like she needs 5 stacks of the enemy healing for her to ignore defense. I think if she gained like 10% attack bar every time someone got healed, that would be fine too.
I've got a new one. Are you new?
Oh,
Because I'm looking for wind units because part of the problem with Alexia is her element, which is fire.
mhm.
And Molong and Lulu being water, but Ionu is wind, and he has a passive at the moment, and he has a pretty cool kit already with the Oblivion, and he has skill 1 HP recovery disturb. If they
And
just
a
add an extra
self-revive,
effect
too.
on his self revive to be some sort of anti heal, anti cleanse type thing, I think he could have potential into
So like if he got like Lexi passive,
Lulu's
like
meta.
half healing.
It's something, yeah, but maybe not giving him ignore defense because he already
He would
does some
obliterate
other stuff.
units.
Yeah, just
Or just a strip on S2 or something to strip into Oblivion in one skill.
It's actually not a bad idea. I think that'd be pretty
that's
cool.
another one.
I think that'd be pretty cool. I never even thought about that. Ayunu is a good unit because I always suggest people to build Ayunu for Tartarus because they don't have Pernas or something like that. But that's actually not a bad idea to make him like an RTA relevant unit. I don't recall if his base stats are good enough for it, but if his kit becomes strong enough, it could work. Could work. All right, this is the one I've been waiting to hear. Livert, go ahead. What do you think?
Well, just like spontaneously, I would go for the wind on Myoji because I think her kit, like she's kind of like supposed to be like an attack bar control counter, I would say, with the attack bar gaining mechanic, and it would be like the way she's designed it would be a little bit less random than like Antares and like the counters that we currently have. So it would maybe be nice to have like a counter that's a little bit less RNG, but then yeah, the way she's currently designed is not really working out.
So what would you want to change about her?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. We have tried so hard to talk about how to buff Geo, and we've talked about things like making her think irresistible. We've talked about changing the passive. We've talked about everything.
I think like for we had okay, you first.
Every time.
Yeah. I think the Karma should be irresistible at first and maybe also landable through immunity. I don't think it would be that OP because you can still ignore it. But I would say S1 still gives 25% damage.
Yeah.
If you add like all those three, it would be decent. I don't think it would still be OP, or it wouldn't even be OP or anything.
I would also say it shouldn't be able to glance because it's kind of at a point where also
you can glance that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's kind of in the same line as increased cooldown, what we talked about earlier. So I think here it also just shouldn't be able to glance.
I think that's I think that's actually pretty okay. I think that's a reasonable concept. You mentioned irresistible. I think the first one being irresistible could be okay. Like the first time you apply karma, it's irresistible. But then like you just add that to the passive. Like the first time you use skill 2, it's irresistible. I think that'd be fine. Because every time after that, you'd still have like accountable RNG, right? You'd have 15% resistance. You'd have all that stuff. Like it would be more reasonable. I also do think that I completely forgot that it's like an attacking skill. So like if you glance, you're just fucked, right?
Yep.
So I think that should be
might as well not do damage.
Skill 2 should just always be a crushing hit. Make it simple.
Yeah, it's also an option.
Crushing hit so you can use it against mollies.
Or you could make it multi-hit to make it more reliable, I guess, and then that also means she does damage. But I don't know if you want to go down that route too much.
Oh no, additional damage again.
Skill 1 and skill 2.
He's doing it. He's making more.
They're both unreliable.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't have a Geo. I only have Shizuka, but I definitely agree that Geo. When I read her kit, like when they were first announcing her, I was like, dude, this unit's gonna be sick. And then she came out, and she's probably the unit that has disappointed me the most in the last 3 years. From like reading what the unit does to what it actually does in game. I don't think there's been a more disappointing unit for me than Geo.
Well, she's also pretty much the worst unit in the game right now. So
kind of reminds me of Momo, the wind. I think Livert was mentioning He's
Yeah.
basically like the wind Suiki, but he's not she rather isn't
Mhm.
actually viable because I guess it's the Suiki like vampire effect is probably the difference. If they gave her a self heal, maybe she might be able to kind of solo stuff in the same way that Suiki does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that mechanic is busted. Like not needing crit is pretty busted.
Yeah, whereas Momo needs crit in order to gain stacks. But I think Momo is a unit with potential to be really useful with the right buff.
Momo's wind mage for those who don't know.
Wind major.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that a bit, Livert, I'd love to hear that because I think I've seen Momo used. We tried using it in G3 and it's we gave it some 115, 120% efficient sets and she sucks a lot. Full stacks, still terrible.
I
Yeah.
never tried her out myself, so I can't really tell. But I was thinking about like her being a potential counter to like the Molong Lulu kind of stuff. If you were able to like get it into late game. But currently she's just, yeah, as you say, she does not enough damage. I think also the stacks are taking quite long until you max it out compared to Suiki, for example. And yeah, without the self-healing, which you kind of need if you want to be like a late game unit, yeah, kind of tough. Like you would have to rune her on Vampire, and yeah, probably she would not be good then. You would probably need to include the self-heal into the kit, and then you could still go for a Vio build.
Oh, what about this? What if Momo had some sort of like windy passive where you like gain a shield like on turns and stuff instead of like giving her like a built-in vampire, like you just give like a team shield, kind of like Valeria does. What do you think about that?
Would be
I don't
very
think
good in Siege.
it can't scale on your attack though, because if it scales on your attack, it would be way too overpowered.
Yep.
But I think that like a shield based on like level or a shield based on like maybe a shield based on how many stacks you have, but in reverse order. So like at 0 stacks, your shield is bigger, and at max stacks, your shield is smaller because you have damage already from that. Maybe that could be an interesting concept. Because then it would balance it throughout the match, right? Because like if your shield scaled all the way to the end, like let's say it was a shield by level, it would just be fixed the entire fight, right? If you scale it by HP, it gets shittier as time goes on. If you scale it by attack, it just gets insanely strong as time goes on. So I'm thinking like, what if we have one that's like a reverse scaling where when you have 0 stacks of passive, you get a bigger shield, and then by the time your Momo finally has 100 stacks, your shield is not as big or like fairly small, but you also have like you have 500% attack at that point.
I think that doesn't really fit with what you want her to do, which is not do any damage at the start of the game, so you don't really need a shield. Whereas at the end of the game is when you need the shield. I think the
I was just
level
thinking
shield
I was just
probably
thinking
makes
the
the most
shield to
sense.
protect against like that Molong Lulu comp, so you can actually get to like the end of the game with her.
Ooh,
Can kind of
give
argue
her a
both
Belio
ways.
Yeah, you could definitely argue both ways because both ways make sense, right? Like it's like, hey, I want to be tanky enough so I can survive to the end game, and then you can also be like, well, I want to be tanky enough that by the time I get to the end game, I actually do damage and I'm not instantly killed. So, rip
Rip
boss.
boss.
Rip internet. Guys, can we get an F in chat? F for our boy.
I wonder how he did it during casting. Like, didn't crash then, right?
True. He actually didn't crash at all.
He actually had some issues like beforehand that they had to fix for his internet, so I'm not sure exactly what it was, but
Hello.
Welcome back. I want Momo to have Chammy skill 3 basically. I
think
mean,
it's just
yeah,
a
to be
Discord
honest,
thing.
yeah.
I don't know
I
how
wouldn't mind
it's,
Momo being a better Chammy. That'd be a cool concept. Chammy, I think, has a really cool concept for her kit. I just don't think she's very good.
Oh yeah, I like Chammy. Fun unit.
Ac-
That's it.
What if they added defense on the passive for Momo? Like instead of just gaining attack, you also gain defense. Because then you naturally become tankier too, right? And defense isn't lost through RTA or like over time.
It isn't kind of useless right now.
It's
Because
not
it's
as
additional
useful
damage.
because additional damage is so good, but it's not. Yeah. Man, this game sucks. Additional damage is
and you're
OP.
still playing.
Every time we're like, hey, this is a cool idea. It's like, yeah, but additional damage says fuck you.
It's okay. I think the meta is shifting way faster than it used to, so I could see it moving away from additional damage in 2022.
I think I would also have like a question left.
Sure.
that I would like to talk about. So beginning of the season, everyone was complaining about the Jeogun not being in the balance patch, and then they nerfed it afterwards. Now, in retrospect, do you think it was a good decision for them to nerf it, and the community was right to, to ask for it, or do you
I have a
think it
very
was a
strong
bad
opinion
decision?
on this. So when that balance patch came out, I came on this podcast and I said, guys, you, the community, the people who are saying nerf Jeogun, you're the problem. Because what you've done is you have ruined a very good LD Nat 5 counter pick. And I think the problem with Jeogun for me was that Jeogun with certain teams was super, super strong because it had everything, right? It had everything. It had speed buff and it had a really long skill 2. I don't think they should have nerfed both things. I think they changed the skill 2 or they take away the speed buff. They didn't need to take away both. I think that one of they double nerfed him when they only needed one nerf, like one small adjustment to make him balanced, right? Either they shorten the skill 2 so that units can actually have a chance to play, or they take away the speed buff because that would naturally just shorten the skill 2 anyways, right? The biggest nerf for Jeogun, in my opinion, was that they nerfed Nephthys, right? Nerfing Nephthys, in my opinion, was fair enough to nerf Jeogun. And so the rest of it was just like, okay, this unit's fine. And then they nerfed him again, and I was like, I don't even have a Jeogun, and I'm just like, why have you done this? Why have you ruined this unit? I don't think it was a good idea. I think it was a terrible idea. I think listening to the community in that situation was a terrible idea.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's terrible, but I would have nerfed one of two, not both. That's for sure.
Hold up. They only nerfed took away the speed buff, right? They didn't do.
No, they shortened
scroll.
the skill 2 as well. The scroll.
Yep.
The duration of the scroll is shortened.
Yeah, that was unnecessary. I think I would have just I think the speed buff is like the main thing about Jeogun rather than the scroll. I know people complain about the scroll, but in my opinion, the speed buff is the thing that enables you to use him with other stuff, and have some sort of gap in terms of your speed tuning. Otherwise, you have to like tune it exactly so that the next unit that moves after him is like one speed slower, and just it's really difficult. Jeogun still has a niche in bomb offenses in arena, basically. So I'm glad that
That's
he's
so
not completely
copium.
useless.
I use Aquila.
I use something in
Jeogun's
arena offense.
more
That's a
reliable, though.
copium. That's a copium statement.
If Aquila doesn't strip a single buff, then you don't get the attack buff.
I know because I don't have Jeogun. That's the issue.
Yeah. Jeogun is a slightly better Aquila, basically.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But
you know what's the biggest issue with the speed buff of the Jeogun? Because everyone is running additional damage from speed. Because they have additional damage from attack and additional damage from speed on a speed lead while having speed buff and attack buff. You're just doing way too much damage. You need 2 turns, everything's dead.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you have an Nephthys, it's even better.
Yeah, then everything is dead in 1 turn.
Yep. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Livert, on it? I know you brought it up, so curious what you think.
Well, I think they should have only nerfed one thing. I'm personally glad that he's out of the meta again, because I think he wasn't really, in my opinion, he wasn't really a healthy unit for RTA, because the scroll, it kind of it makes you put, like, for example, Will on Taurus and stuff, and that's like, those are units where like revenge runes, for example, come into play, which are kind of niche nowadays. So I think he kind of was bringing it to the point that you had less rune variety in the game, which I think is unhealthy. So I didn't really like his mechanic because of that. So I'm kind of glad that he's gone, but I still don't know whether listening to the community was like the best idea, because I generally think people judge balance patches way too fast. Like, usually when a balance patch comes out, everyone is just saying, oh yeah, this shit, that's the like, it changes nothing. And then when you're looking 2 months later, the meta still changed. So apparently they did something right. And especially this time, the meta was like in season 17, I feel like it was very long. It was like the Jeogun more meta. And then right at the end, a few weeks before the end, it started to shift towards the Lulu direction. So you kind of noticed that the meta wasn't really at a stale point. So changing it up too much to favor the Bruiser side that it was already switching to, then kind of like was too much. So I think they shouldn't have nerfed it as much, especially since the meta was still shifting.
I think so. You mentioned rune diversity being less of a thing. I think that's not just Jeogun's problem, but I think all of the art masters being released and also getting buffs was actually a significant factor to that, because will on everyone is really good because Haegang exists, and will on everyone is really good because it denies Chungpong, and will is good on everyone because it denies Scroll. Right? Like all three of those units, like the regular element ones, give you your own really strong reasons to run like will on everything, right? That's why earlier I said I feel like will is really really good in the meta right now, and it's almost necessary. I think the creation and buffing of the art masters is what caused that. So I agree with you. Root diversity is generally one of the bigger issues in the game. Like,
I don't know, it's possible. I just generally didn't like Jeogun and also Changpong. I think the kits are like weird. For AoE strips, they have too strong control skills in my opinion. Like the Changpong, like what they also the change that they did to him, for example, I think it's also really weird. Like the defense break applying before the strip. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, because for me the broken part about him is like when he does that S2 and then just procs and goes into S3. That's for me the main issue with him. I didn't really care about the defense break. So I think the main issue is having a unit that has AoE attack bar control and cooldown increase, and on another skill an AoE strip. And another problem, like from my perspective as a turn 2 player, is like if there is an AoE stripper, I think it should have 100% activation rate, basically, because with the 75% activation rate you can't really calculate for it to land or not land. Like if I let it through, it basically goes from it can strip, let's say, like only 1 unit or 2 units, to it can strip the entire team and proc into a skill free. So it's basically from it wins you the game to it loses you the game, and that's just way too much of a range to like predict for. If that makes any sense.
no, I agree. I think there's a lot of units having like ridiculous first turn violent procs are pretty painful. Like that was the old Ganny. Remember, guys, that Ganny could, if he had full will, just strip into violent proc reset. That was infuriating beyond all belief.
Then ventilate on self, do it again.
Yeah, just repeat. That was not a fun time. That was not a fun time in the meta. But yeah. Overall, I kind of agree. I think I lean to agree with that. I think our masters really shook up the game. You mentioned meta shifting and not necessarily being stale. I think that something that's worth mention is I really think that the meta doesn't actually sit in one place for too long ever. And I don't think it's actually based as necessarily on the balance patches. I think it's just based on how creative like high level players decide they want to be at any given point, because the meta shifts really based on like how effectively higher level players do things that are different, especially things that involve like free to play units or like more accessible units. That's really what shifts the meta, right? Like the end of the Jeogun more season you're mentioning, like Lulu came up, and Lulu came up because people felt like they needed an option against it, and that was like the best choice for them, right? And then now that we've had some changes, everyone feels like, certain units like that were really strong before, such as Chungpong, have become a lot more inconsistent. Now they just focus on playing that single target snipe build, right? Like Daphnis is getting a little bit of popularity again. Molong is extremely popular, right? Karnal's still amazing, still really good, but even before, less people used Karnal, and now more people are starting to use it. There were some of us who used it all the time, like Fadas and I used it every game for the last like 3 or 4 seasons, and most people didn't. But now that people see how strong it is, like they're starting to pick up these units, right? I feel like the meta really constantly shifts, and people don't give it enough credit. Like people don't give enough credit to the players out there really pioneering different stuff that you can do. Like we all say like Vanessa Triana sucks, but like there are tons of players who can actually use it really, really well because they're willing to put in the time and the effort to learn how to use it and to make it fit for the current meta, right? RTA is not a simple concept of I have these units, I have these runes, slap it together, press buttons. It's like there's so much to it, like so much learning to how to use your comps, to how to make, the proper decisions. And like when you make the wrong decision, like analyzing whether it's because you misplayed or it's because you didn't draft correctly, or if it's just not something that's viable for this meta to run a comp like that. There are so many small factors that I don't think people credit enough in RTA. And I mean like just like general populace. Essentially me talking about Reddit complaining about things.
I mean, it's also a little bit like every account is a little bit different since not everyone has every unit. So if you're missing a unit, you need to kind of like figure out a way to make up for it. And sometimes, like, let's say you're a meta player and you're missing like 2 important units, then it can be better for you to play not meta because you can basically get higher with it because there you have like more picks that give you like a well-rounded draft. But yeah, of course, also like you have to put in the work yourself. You can't just like copy what everyone else does down.
All right.
Yeah,
Do you guys have
especially
any? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and especially if you have like LDNet 5s, your account just you kind of have your own meta, I would say, depending on which ones you have.
I totally agree with that. That's kind of the reason why I want one so badly. Even if it's not necessarily like super strong, I think it just gives you like a whole different like playbook to work with, right? Like let's say I pull like a
Mana
Nikki.
Grogan.
You'll never see
you
me
can
stream
have
this
it.
game ever. This podcast will end so fast. Everything, yeah. No, I've said that. If I pull a Grog as my first LDNet 5, I may entirely quit this game and never stream it ever again.
You can have
Oh,
mine. It's
no.
fine. It does nothing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
congrats.
if I pull a Grogan after I pull something I can actually use, I think I'll be less upset because I at least have something. But if it's the first one,
Yeah.
I think that would be so crippling to me that I don't know if I could actually recover from it.
I know quite a few players that are like, yeah, I just want any LD Net 5. And I always said, like, you want any LD Net 5 until you get the any LD Net 5. And they're like, no, I can make any LD Net 5 working. And someone
I
pulled
want
a Kraka
anything that
and
I
quit.
can use. Yeah, I want
Oh.
anything that I can use in RTA, even if it's not necessarily like really strong. I just want to be able to use it for something and like force it. Because at least like for me, like as a content creator, I can create content out of forcing a unit, even if it's bad, right? How do you force using a Grogan? How do you force using a Jar? Like if you give me like a Cadiz or you give me like a Julian or like a Celia, like I can force it and really struggle through it, but at least there's something to do, right?
Hey, Jaro. Jaro is cool.
True.
Yeah,
I want a better
solo R5.
solo R5.
You can do so much damage with Jaro.
Jara does a lot of I'll be honest though, Jara does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But like you know what I mean though. Like if I'm not asking to pull like a Gianna or to pull like, you know, a Ragdoll or anything like that, or any like or Volantis. I just want something. Just something. Just something that can be forced.
I think a lot of the newer 5-star LDs are pretty weak. So those will be interesting. And also interesting as well. Not that good and interesting. So you can have one of those.
I'll take your
Except
Jackson.
for the Dark
You can
Onmyoki. That one is
Same,
way
mate.
too OP.
Oh
light
yeah,
on
I'll take it on Yoki any day. I summoned one for Jay and I get to play around with it every once in a while. That unit is busted.
Yeah, it does so much damage. Even when not stunned, still too much damage.
So good. It's like it's a Nat 5 statted kinky or a cocky. It's just it's nuts. He hits so hard. And he has a HP lead too for Arena. A good unit.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any last topics you want to bring up?
I just wanted to add like you can nerf Dongyoki if you want. I don't know. I usually just tank it, so I don't care.
True. I mean, if you're a turn 1 player, it's a lot harder to take. If you're a turn 2 player,
so.
I believe it. I believe it 100%. That thing's crazy. There's that one Japanese player in Guardian 2 that runs the Swift Ongyoki, Swift Cocky, Swift everything. He runs like Vanessa Cocky Ongyoki Gemini +1. It's like it's actually maybe it's not Vanessa, but it's pretty scary. His whole team with the 19% lead is faster than my 24% lead Barb at 315. I was like, wow. This guy's actually pretty fast, but I guess it makes sense,
Is he
right?
the
Like,
same guy that used to run like Lagmaron and Shiho and
yes.
stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the really fast. Yeah, this is really fast. But like now that he has Ongyoki, he just like obliterates people. Like his replays are so fast.
That's a nice unit for him to have.
Yeah. He either loses turn 1 or he like immediately kills your whole team. And it's just like I would actually really enjoy doing wings like that for maybe like a month. But I can't imagine doing that every single day. I feel like it would get boring.
There's someone out there who can run like Nikki Ongyoki? Because I feel like basically those 2 units are all you need to one-shot like most of the teams.
If you go like Nikki Ongyoki plus Asher and some speed leads.
Wall Young.
Oof, man, that's powerful.
Wall Young, Nikki, Ongyoki, Cocky, Gemini? Maybe not Gemini. Maybe just run Asher, just run damage, right? for damage guarantee turn 1.
I would say just go like Young Nikki, Onyoki, Han.
Han, true.
Yeah,
of course.
Han is
Gianna.
busted
Just throw the
by
just throw the
itself.
Woonsa or Gianna in there, right?
Han
And
is busted
Windsor.
by itself.
Han,
I played on the
Woonsa,
Han
'cause
account
then
today,
you
man.
can-
That thing does so much damage for him. It's literally Diana with armor breaks in between.
I got
Yeah,
I got
now
killed
imagine
doing
like
everything.
the Nikki going before, so the units are at half health already, so you don't really care whether you land the defense break since you already have
You
attack
don't need
buff.
it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I hope there's a guy out there with those LDs. I want to see
Nikki
that.
has really high base speed too. She's 105, so it's even better to do that with. Ongyoki's 115. I think Han is 107.
Yep.
Damn, these are some high base speed units. Super high base speed units. I keep thinking about this comp and how much I want a Nikki now. Like I don't have an Ongyoki, but man, I want a Nikki so bad. I want a Nikki or a Woolyoung. I think for fun units, those are my two most wanted. And then for like units that are really good, it's like Volantis, Tianling are the ones that I want the most.
Volantis.
Volantis is broken.
50% of the time, he's really good.
50% of the time, every time.
Okay.
It depends. His base stats are really good though. Like his base HP is really high. I would like a Volantis just for like siege related stuff. I think he'd be good there. Yeah, even
Last season we had like 1 or 2 Volantis spammers that did really well, but they're not here anymore this season. I'm not sure what changed because he mostly was using Volantis with more and then like some of the AoE CCers. So like jump on
What
card, all
changed
that kind of
is
stuff.
that Jeogun isn't meta anymore.
I would say
True,
so
but he was
as well.
not using Jeogun that much. He was mostly using just
No.
Volantis
No, it's
and
Volantis is
against
the
him.
counter to Jeogun.
Yeah.
And
yeah, true.
Yeah.
I cannot
Whereas he
spam
doesn't
Carbine
counter
anymore.
Diana at all.
People are not using Jeogun plus more anymore, so I cannot use Carbine. That was always funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun, interesting units. Not a lot of super good ones, but a lot of fun, interesting ones at least. I wouldn't mind an Elenoa too. That would be kind of fun to mess around with. Elenoa 10 million turn comps.
He's good for
Elenoa is
TOA.
the Polar Queen, right?
Yeah, she's like Polar Queen.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a guildie of mine that runs it with a can and a Moor, and the can does insane amount of damage. And you can do can S3, S2, Eleanor S3 into can S3, S2, which just annihilates teams.
Yeah, if you have fast runes, that definitely works. And because you don't even need to run like crit damage either, because you can just run additional damage on max crit and just make it faster, and then go additional damage by speed. Yeah, getting Elenoa Gani just never fun.
Well, actually, that's one of those comps on paper. It's really good, but 9 out of 10 it lacks damage, kind of.
It's really good up until like Guardian 2, and then it becomes a lot weaker. But in Guardian 1, that still slaps people like crazy.
Probably.
Just a rune quality. I think it's just a rune quality difference. It's like there's a lot of comps that are really good at stomping ladder until you get to a certain point, right? Like Cleave is really good until like Guardian 1, unless you have insane runes or like Ongyoki. Or Ongyo. I love that statement. Unless you have Cleave or Ongyoki. If you have this unit, you bypass the exceptions. Yeah. If you have Nikki in your Cleave or you have Ongyoki in your Cleave, you can probably bypass basic exceptions. Any last topics before we wrap it up, friends? I would also love to have all of you back on the podcast again. I really enjoyed this. I like the way you guys approach the game, and I like the way you guys think about things and discuss. I know we talk over each other occasionally, but it's just more for the fun blooper reels. It was great to have you guys. I really appreciated you guys coming on today.
Thanks for inviting us. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
If you guys have any last statements you want to say to the YouTube channel when I post it, or to chat that's watching right now, feel free. We can go in the regular order.
Buff Lulu.
Buff Ayunu and Water Slime and Jackson. Thanks.
And Jackson, yeah, and Jackson.
Let's not forget Jackson.
Let's not forget Jackson. That's true.
Buff OnceInLuv by finally giving him his LD 5. And please don't
give
make
this
it
man a Grogan.
Please don't give me trash.
GZ Grogan.
Oh my god. I hope one day. Something cool. Something cool. We all know that it's not gonna be a Grogan, it's gonna be a fucking light bison, dude, and it's gonna be just worse.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be just as bad. It's gonna be so sad. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining for the podcast. Thanks for joining us all here. Like I said, I would love to have you guys all back. If you are watching from the YouTube channel, make sure to leave a comment if you guys have anything you want to talk about regarding things we talked about in the podcast. I read all the comments. I respond to all the comments. Other than that, if you have people who want to be on the podcast or suggestions, etc., let them know to message myself or Stoic. And as always, big shout out to Stoic. Thank you for making this happen. Friend, I appreciate you always being the back-end director. So thank you guys. I will see you soon. Hopefully, we're kind of like on a podcast schedule of like every 2 weeks ish, just because SWC is like really busy. I know like Boss is busy with SWC. I'm busy with it. Stark's busy with it. You guys are playing in SWC, so it's just crazy. The next time you guys will probably see us is September 12th. Stoic and I will be doing Europe Cup. Are you also you're also casting? Sorry, America's Cup. You're also casting America's Cup, right? Or not? I don't know what you guys
Me?
are doing.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm
You
not
guys
doing any
casted on your
casting.
channel
You
as well?
guys are
Oh,
you guys are taking our jobs now from now on.
I
I've
see.
not got
I
any more
see.
casting to do. We only got to
So
do
it was just
prelim.
prelims then?
Yeah.
I see. Well, I'll be
All
honest. I you're casting a lot,
the
so
best.
maybe
I think
we get
like all
to
the
that.
other
Thanks.
I think all the other European casters are still like casting, like the Germans and Italians and
Just
stuff
the
like
other
that.
language ones. I see.
It's
So
just
it's
because
only
we
the
speak the
English ones
same
that are dropping
language,
out.
That's true.
so I'm not
You need a
needed.
try cast. That's what we need. We need a try cast. Like the
That's
good
the
old
dream.
Dota casts. That's the dream right there.
Please pitch that.
I will. I think that'd be
Oh,
really cool.
yeah,
I think
awesome.
it'd be really cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us, guys. I will see you soon. Appreciate it again, Stoic. Peace, friends.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Bye bye.